You ever come home expecting a quiet afternoon and find chaos waiting at your front gate? That's exactly what happened last Tuesday. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee and was about to settle onto the porch when I saw them, HOA patrol uniforms climbing our fence like it was some jungle gym. My stomach dropped, heart hammering, because this wasn't the first time. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from, because I guarantee you've never seen HOA antics this wild. Grandpa was already on the porch, his eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. And I swear I've never seen him move so fast. It had started as a normal morning. Sunlight spilled over the manicured lawns, birds chirping as if nothing sinister was happening. My coffee steamed in the cup, and I could hear the faint hum of the air, conditioning kicking in through the open window. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood, Grandpa's signature touch. Nothing felt out of place except maybe the eerie quiet on our street. Usually neighbors would be out walking dogs or checking the mail, but today, silence, too perfect, too calm. That's when I noticed the movement. First at the top of the fence, then the unmistakable shape of two HOA officers balancing themselves over the pickets. "What are they doing?" I whispered, hard in my throat. Grandpa didn't answer. He just walked slowly toward the old gate, his hand brushing over the metal like he was feeling its pulse. My mind raced. Had they really come this far again? I remembered last month's confrontation, the papers shoved in my face, the threats about fines and eviction. I'd thought we were done, but apparently they weren't finished. Every instinct screamed, "Don't let them get in." But what could we do? We were facing fake authority that refused to understand boundaries. By the time I reached the porch, the HOA guys had one foot over the fence. I froze, coffee forgotten, watching them with a mixture of disbelief and fury. Grandpa, ever calm, reached for the old control box tucked under the porch railing. "You should have stayed home today," he muttered, not even looking at me. The box had wires running to the gate, wires I didn't think still worked. But Grandpa had always been a tinkerer, always prepared, always one step ahead. My stomach churned at the thought of what he might do. Suddenly, a sharp click followed by a faint buzz through the air. Grandpa's eyes gleamed. "Just a little reminder about personal property," he said. I could hear the wind rustle through the trees, the soft thump of a distant dog barking, and underneath it all, the faint metallic hum that made the hair on my arms stand on end. The HOA patrol froze mid-step, and I felt a mix of dread and exhilaration. This was going to escalate fast, and I could sense the neighbors starting to peek through their blinds. Everyone knew something was about to go down. Then the yelling started. "Hey, what is this?" one of the officers shouted, his voice cracking with confusion and shock. Grandpa didn't respond, only stood there with the control box, calm as if he were sipping tea at a Sunday picnic. I wanted to intervene, wanted to tell them to leave, but my voice caught somewhere in my chest. I could see sweat glistening on the officer's forehead, the way his uniform clung to him, and the way his partner looked at him like they were both in uncharted territory. I realized then how dangerously close we were to a real confrontation. I backed toward the porch, my hands gripping the railing, trying to steady my shaking legs. The HOA officer moved closer, thinking he had control. That's when Grandpa pressed the button again. The fence gate vibrated, sending a tiny electric shock that made one officer stumble backward, cursing and shouting at his partner. I held my breath, watching, my mind flashing through worst-case scenarios. But there was also a strange sense of justice. Watching these supposed authority figures realize they had crossed a line. Neighbors peeked out of windows, some whispering, some holding phones, ready to record what was about to become viral drama. The officers regrouped quickly, shaking off the shock, but their confusion made them hesitant. I could see the tension building in the air like static before a storm. Grandpa's eyes never left them, his fingers hovering over the control box, ready to react if needed. I felt my pulse racing, every heartbeat loud in my ears. The street was quiet, almost too quiet, and the smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the faint ozone from the electric gate. I realized that in all my years I'd never seen Grandpa so serious. This wasn't a prank. This was defense. One officer finally spoke, voice sharp, trying to assert dominance. "Sir, you can't," he started, but stopped mid-sentence when another buzz jolted him backward again. "Get off my property!" Grandpa's voice was calm but heavy with authority. I shivered, realizing how terrifying calmness could be in the right or wrong hands. The officers glanced at each other, hesitation flickering in their eyes. I could practically hear their thoughts. Is this legal? What do we do? Meanwhile, I stayed frozen, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. Then came the shouts from the neighbors. A couple kids on bicycles slowed down, gawking at the scene. Mrs. Hernandez from 2 doors down leaned out of her window, phone raised, whispering to someone. About HOA drama, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast. Everyone else watching, recording, while we stood at the edge of chaos. It was almost cinematic. The electric hum, Grandpa's unwavering stare, and the panicked officers trying to figure out what had just happened. My mind was racing, calculating every possible outcome. Suddenly, one officer pulled out a phone, presumably to call for backup. Grandpa didn't flinch. "Go ahead," he said softly, almost bored. "Call them. Let them see how far you've pushed us." The officer hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen, sweat beading on his forehead. The other officer's knees were shaking, and I could hear the faint whir of the gate's small motor. The tension was unbearable. I wanted to intervene, to yell something, but my voice caught in my throat. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing louder than the chaos around us. Then it happened. The officer's hand brushed the gate, testing it. A sharp jolt made him stumble back, swearing loudly. My stomach dropped, but Grandpa didn't look away. "Consider that a friendly warning," he said, almost whispering, but his tone carried ice. The neighbors had come out now, a small crowd forming, whispering in astonishment. I could feel the heat of the moment pressing down on me. Every second stretched painfully long. I realized we had entered a standoff where no one could back down without losing face. I felt a strange mix of pride and fear as I watched Grandpa hold his ground. These HOA officers had treated our home like it was theirs to patrol. And now, for the first time, the balance had shifted. The buzz of electricity in the air seemed to amplify every sound. Shouts, footsteps, the metallic clink of a clipboard dropped in panic. The tension was so thick I could almost touch it. And I knew that one wrong move could escalate this beyond anyone's control. But Grandpa, calm and steady, made me realize something vital. Sometimes authority isn't about uniforms or badges, it's about respect and boundaries. The officers tried again, cautiously circling the gate, but the buzz made them flinch each time. I could see the confusion and fear in their eyes. They had underestimated us. I leaned against the railing, heart still pounding, wondering how this would end. Grandpa's fingers hovered above the button, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, ready for any sudden move. I could feel the collective gaze of the neighbors, the way their attention amplified every heartbeat, every sound. The standoff was tense, cinematic, almost surreal. By now, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Phones were out, recording every twitch of the gate, every reaction from the HOA officers. I could hear murmurs of excitement, whispers about how Grandpa just electrified the gate, and even a few chuckles at the sheer audacity of it all. The officers looked trapped, surrounded not just by us, but by witnesses who could testify to their actions. The tension was so thick I could taste it, metallic like the edge of a knife. The taller officer finally snapped, stepping toward Grandpa with a glare. "This is illegal." "You can't," he began, but the gate buzzed under his fingertips again, making him stumble and clutch his arm. I could see the mix of shock and anger on his face, the way he realized that he had misjudged the situation completely. Grandpa's calmness contrasted sharply with the officer's frantic energy, and I realized that confidence and preparation were more intimidating than any uniform. The crowd gasped as the officer straightened, trying to regain composure. "We're just doing our job," he yelled, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Grandpa's voice cut through the tension, cold and unwavering. "Your job doesn't include trespassing or threatening my family. Remember that." I watched as the words sank in, both for the officers and for the neighbors who were witnessing the drama unfold. It was a lesson in respect, authority, and boundaries that no amount of HOA paperwork could override. Then came the twist. The shorter officer pulled a badge from his pocket, trying to assert some semblance of real authority. But Grandpa, ever the strategist, had already anticipated this. "Fake authority doesn't scare me," he said simply, gesturing to the gate. Next time, try knocking. The officer's face turned pale, and I could feel the collective tension of the crowd shift. They were no longer just witnesses. They were allies in silent judgment, absorbing the spectacle of justice being served in real time. The officers glanced at each other, realization dawning. Their intimidation tactics had failed, and now the only way out was retreat. Grandpa didn't pursue. He simply stood there, calm as ever, while I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The buzz of the gate faded as the officers scrambled back over the fence, muttering threats and excuses. I could hear the murmurs of the neighbors, sharing what had happened, some even applauding quietly from the windows. I sank onto the porch, adrenaline still coursing through me. Grandpa patted my shoulder, a rare smile breaking through his serious demeanor. Sometimes, he said, you have to show people the line they can't cross. I nodded, realizing how close we'd come to chaos, and how carefully Grandpa had handled it. The electric gate had been a deterrent, a message, and a lesson, all at once. I could smell the faint ozone lingering in the air, mixing with the warm scent of coffee, and the quiet of a neighborhood, now aware that boundaries are not to be crossed lightly. Authority isn't just about badges or rules, it's about respect and knowing your limits. Never let anyone cross your boundaries without consequences. If this story shocked you, hit that like button, share it with friends, and comment below which part made your jaw drop the most. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another crazy HOA showdown.